Alright, so fair warning going into this video. I wanted to get this video out fairly quickly, so I put a lot of time into the deck list, but keep in mind, I think there's probably a few more ways to optimize it. The deck list isn't bad, it's just, since I haven't had as much time testing as I would normally have, normally with these structure decks and stuff they leak beforehand, I get more time to test, I'd come out with a probably much more optimized deck list. So this deck list, I want you guys to take it as sort of a template to build on top of, and then sort of, as time goes on, build a better way to play it, or just build a more optimal way to play it, because this is definitely the best way to play it as far as I'm concerned. Magistus, in combination with the new structure deck, is the best way to play the new structure deck. I'm just not 100% sure on the ratios of cards in the deck yet, so take this as a bit of an example video, because there's some really banger gameplays in here, and some not so banger ones that are just sort of showing off the starting boards for this, because this deck can build some pretty insane starting fields. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So here's today's deck list. Now just a reminder before I get into the deck list, if you guys are enjoying today's video and want to see more videos just like this in the future, or more deck lists just like this in the future, remember to leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel down below. Apparently about 35% of people watching this are even subscribed to the channel, means 65% of you haven't even clicked that button yet. So if you guys are enjoying it, remember to leave a like, remember to subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into this deck list. Alright, so there is a lot to talk about with this deck list because, as far as I'm concerned, most people that were trying to build using this structure deck had absolutely no clue what to do with it, including myself. But I quickly found something that turned into a very functional combo. This combo is extremely good. Well, good as far as the combo feels good, but the actual deck list, I wouldn't say it's like top tier or anything meta relevant, because I think going second, you're going to struggle a lot more because there isn't that many extension-y stuff. Your opponent stops you summoning your Zara, you're going to have a big problem. And also Zara is the main piece of the deck list. If you don't open Zara, you're also going to struggle a little bit more too. You can still set up some stuff, I'll show one gameplay showing off a sort of board you can set up, but it just feels a lot worse without him. So the reason this deck list functions so well is because the entire new structure deck is based around trying to get effects of spellcasters with 1500 attack, whereas this card is in fact a spellcaster with 1500 attack, and he's also a fire monster, which is pretty relevant when you're using a trap card that requires different attributes, as you'll see when I talk about in just a second. So first things first, let's go through the brand new cards, starting off with the brand new field spell, which is actually a banger card. This card, I suspect in the future, if any other deck comes out that happens to have a spellcaster with 1500 defense, will just be a main deck card in general, because its first effect is just insane. Negate your opponent's first monster effect that resolves each turn while you control a spellcaster type monster with 1500 defense. So keep in mind this is a mandatory negate, you can't choose when to use it. As soon as your opponent uses an effect, you have your monster on field, you're going to negate it. But also remember, it negates it at resolution, which is very important, because it means if you have a trap card, for example, that summons a 1500 back from the graveyard or back from your hand, you can then choose when to use the negate, because you just summon it, then when the thing resolves, it will get negated. So keep that in mind, very important. Next up we have, oh sorry, actually, I should probably read the rest of the card, shouldn't I? Alright, during your main phase you can reveal one spellcaster monster from your hand, and if you do, add one monster with the same attribute with 1500 blah 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 from your deck to your hand, shuffle the real card into your deck. So the rest of the effects of this card, it doesn't matter for this particular deck list, because I'm not running other cards. But do keep in mind the second part of this effect might be something you can choose to run in the future. If you want to run something like the brand new blah blah blah, whatever this card's name is, you can run it in this deck list, so you can use your field spell in combination with your charmers to get a free special summon monster to your hand. I felt you didn't really need it with this deck list in particular because you're doing a bunch of special summoning anyway, but this does give you an extra extender, and I did just talk about how this deck list sort of struggles going second because you don't have many extending sort of pieces, so maybe it's worth running? I don't know, feel free to test it out for yourself. Alright, then we have Spirit Charmers. This card is crazy good, and any other archetype of card like this is just absolutely game-breaking, but for particular Charmers, they're not that great of an archetype, but this card really carries it. Alright, discard one card, take two cards from your deck with different names from each other that are Charmer monsters, familiar possessed monsters, and or possessed spell and trap cards. Add one of them to your hand and set the other. Very sick card for this deck list, because you can use it to add a Charmer to hand, and grab a trap card and set it immediately, so that's already two cards. And keep in mind, your fusion spell, which we'll talk about later on, can be used with either a Magistus plus any spellcaster type monster. So this thing, grabbing one of these, setting it on the field or adding it to your hand, can immediately be used as material to fusion summon. Very important. Also keep in mind the trap card can summon this thing as well as your other dudes. Speaking of which, we should talk about the trap card. So the trap card is your possessed partnerships. Special summon spellcast type monster with 1500 defense from your hand or graveyard in attack position or face down defense position. Then if you control 2 monsters with 2 or more different attributes, you can destroy 1 face up card on the field. You banish this card from your graveyard and target 1 possessed, continuous spell trap card in your graveyard, place it on top of the field, blah blah blah. We don't actually play any possessed continuouses in this deck list. So this card is insane for this deck list because, like I said earlier, it can make your field spell negate an effect you activate when you want to activate it, rather than just being a mandatory effect. Because your end field will end on generally your fusion monster and your Xyz monster. So that way, when you activate this trap card, you won't actually have any 1500 attack on field at the moment until you summon something back from the graveyard or summon something out from your hand. Also, you'll notice I'm playing the Earth one. This is because there is no other Earth monster in the entirety of my deck list. So the 2 different attributes effect will always be live if you want to destroy a card as well. So you can negate something and destroy something. Very strong card, you'll see it a lot during the gameplay. So that's basically it for the new stuff. As for the old stuff, I was thinking about talking about it here, but now that I think about it, there's no real reason to when I could just show you how all the cards work during the gameplay, and most of you guys probably know how the Magistus stuff works anyway, and if you don't, you'll see it during the gameplay, and you'll see how it all synergizes together, because it really does synergize super well together. So without further ado, let's check out some replays. Alright, so like I said at the start of the video, I wanted to get this video out fairly quickly, so I haven't prepared the best replays possible. All these replays are going to be more examples showcasing what the deck can do, but not necessarily the best replays ever. The final 2 replays are pretty sick, the first 2 are 100% just turn 1 setups and nothing else, because I think my opponent just concedes as soon as he realizes he can't do anything. So yeah, let's get into it. So we'll start off with a Magistus with the your Zora starting board. If you open Zora, you're going to have a pretty good time with this deck list. If you don't open it, you'll see that in the second replay, you're probably not going to have as good of a time. Alright. I think that second part, where if you don't open Zora, you're not going to have as good of a time, is probably really easily fixable if you're a Magistus player and you actually know how Magistus works. I'm literally first timing it today, so although I've come up with this cool little combo, I don't actually know the most optimal way to play the combo yet. So if there's any Magistus players that want to optimize the deck list, feel free, because I'm not 100% sure how to make this deck list work super well when you don't open your Zora. So keep that in mind. Alright, let's get into it. But if you do open Zora, bang a hand. Alright, so we'll start off with, first of all, activate Grand Spiritual. Keep in mind, this card is actually, we activated it first, because this card is literally usable during your opponent's turn, the negate effect. It's every turn. Alright. Zara, going to be equipping from the extra deck. Upon doing so, can special summon out a Charmer from hand. I'm now going to chain my Spirit Charmers to discard my Charmer in hand, or discard any card in hand to the graveyard to search for a card. The reason I'm chaining this is because your Zora can actually resummon from the graveyard, and it summons any spellcaster, by the way, including your dudes. So discarding, searching, getting your trap on the field. This revives your graveyard card. Getting a search, going my, blah blah blah, whatever this card's name is, your Verre. Alright, these 2 are going to be going into your Exceed. Your Exceed can then do a search. Or special summon, sorry. Summoning out the Verre from the deck. This will then give you a search for a monster. Grabbing your Magistus last special summon back card. Invocation, going to be summoning out your Spell Spirit. Your Vritra, then be normal summoning a card back from the graveyard. And these 2 cards, I can then go into an Xyz monster, or I could also go into a copy of the Synchro as well. Go into your Vahram. Or how you pronounce this card. I'm butchering all these card names. But go into this card, detach, grab a card back to hand, and that's sort of a decent end field. We've got a negate, that's a mandatory negate, but in this case, it's actually not mandatory because we can choose when to use it with the trap card. We've got no Earth monster on the field, or no Fire monster either, so whenever we activate this trap card, we can destroy something on the field, negate an effect, and of course, this card, if you guys don't know what it does, you can quick effect, send it to your equip zone, steal one of your opponent's monsters. We've got a negate, a destroy, and of course we've got follow up on the following turn. So negate, a destroy, a steal, and follow up on the following turn. Not too bad. Unfortunately in this case, my opponent actually had some pretty decent outs. He actually had the crackdown. This is another case of me just being a bad Magistus player though, because if I just equipped this thing at some point during my turn, which is probably pretty easy to do, in fact I may not even have to search the start of the turn or something, I could have just popped one of the back row and probably had a lot better of a time, so anyway, Cosmic Cyclone also removed my back row, meaning I was pretty screwed. Another pretty big weakness of this deck list, if your back row gets removed, you lose your destruction. Not too bad going first, because you just still summon your monster to the field and you've still got a negate. Unfortunately, during the end phase of my turn, I couldn't activate it, so. Fine. thankfully he actually kind of bricked, so he had nothing else after that, so... That was just a turn 1 setup sort of a thing. Don't worry about it being an insane replay. This second one's going to be a very, very boring replay, because again, same sort of shit, but I'm just going to be showing what happens if you don't open Zora, because I don't really know where you're meant to, what you're meant to be setting up with it. But this is the sort of end board you can set up if you don't open Zora. 30 card deck list, great. Alright, activating it once again. Activating my Rilliona, searching for my dude. Going into my Link 1. So then I can use the revive effect, bring back my card, which then trigger its effect to search. Also trigger this card's effect to attach to it, which gives me a search, very importantly, for your Zora, which is obviously your 1500 attack monster you need for your combination with your field spell. Thankfully we opened the trap card, so we can set the trap card. So, very sort of weak hand. If you don't open the Zora, you don't really end on a whole lot, but also keep in mind, I didn't open the quick play spell either, so it wasn't the... Yeah, it was a pretty not so great hand, but this is what you sort of end on normally if you don't open this card. You end on your negate and your pop. Not the worst, so... Still, it's not like a super bricky hand, it was actually still playable, and thankfully my opponent, again, just sort of bricked here. We didn't really brick, he just normal summoned. As soon as he normal summoned it, I'm going to take this trap card, would summon this card from my hand, pop this card on the field, and I'd have a negate ready. Now you just concedes before anything even happens, just decides it's not even worth it. Apparently you couldn't play through that, so... Alright, now these last two replays, you're going to enjoy them, because they are bangers. Both of them are Zora replays, because obviously the Zora replays are the whole point of the deck list. It looks so goddamn good if you open it. Alright, this is the Netcross guy. I sent a screenshot of what I was doing in one of the DLM discords, and they were pretty, a lot of what the fucks about this screenshot. Because this end field is pretty damn interesting. I was supposed to do my own Discord and have the same reaction. Alright, so I'm going to use my spell card, discarding, getting a search, grabbing my Aussa and my possessed partnerships. This trap card's actually, I'm so impressed with this trap card by the way. Alright, so once again, activating effects, getting a equip spell, normal summoning, or special summoning, getting a search, grabbing my Verre. I'm not even sure if you're meant to be grabbing Verre here, whichever one you're meant to use as part of the fusion spell. Alright. Wardrobe, gonna be searching for a Verre, or special summoning Verre, getting a search. Grabbing the fusion spell. Alright, Invocation, the 2 cards on field, ending on my spirit. And passing the turn. Alright, opponent uses his Senju, searches for his Netcross. This guy actually had a pretty sick hand. Thankfully, I actually have no cards in hand, which is a very bad news for the Netcross player. They like when you have cards in hand. As you can see, I'm not using my negate yet, don't have to, so I'm just chilling, just waiting. Waiting for the perfect time to negate, which I'm pretty sure I know when I'm going to negate, so I'm just waiting for it. Alright, and as soon as he gets this card on the field and goes to use its effect, that's when I'm activating my effect. So it goes to use it, I'm now going to trigger my effect on my trap card. Summoning my boy, popping a card on the field, and the field spell will now negate at resolution. So I used it in response to his Brionac. So negated that, popped his other card, and now that he hasn't got his quick effect negate anymore, I can just use this card freely, yoink his monster, and have a big boy on field. Alright, Wardrobe, still on field, still gets another special summon, grabs my Zora. Equipping again. Now I can use the effect of this card to pop a card to pop the last back row he's got there. Find out what it is. Book a Moon. Sure, he's just popping my crit spell off the card. I don't care. He thinks he's gonna protect himself with his Valkyries, but this, like I said, it's usable during my opponent's turn, so obviously he's negated. Alright. Alright, on to the final replay, which is another bit of a banger replay as far as I remember. Not sure what I was up against though. Yeah, so I think this deck list just... Oh yes, it's a tri-mid player actually. So I think this deck list is really not that great going second, and I think against a lot of meta stuff, it can feel pretty bad. Because I don't think this deck does too well into back row, and there isn't that many not that much room for techs, I don't think. Maybe someone that's a bit better at building Magistus would have a better way of fitting in some techs or something, but yeah, I'm not sure. Alright, so he's doing a bunch of try-mid stuff. Go your hardest, buddy. Gets his field spell, gets his search, blah 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 blah. Also, I think this guy was pretty bad, because he's like, he just sort of waited. He didn't just pop my first monster, which I feel like if you just pop this card, I actually had the answer if he popped it, but normally you won't. Alright, Charmer's discarding. He's now going to swap one over. Alright, getting my Familiar. Trap card on field. Alright, normal summon. Once again, I'm going to be able to revive straight back from the graveyard if he decides to do absolutely nothing, which he does. Alright, second revive. Now, the reason I'm using the revive here rather than later is because I'm planning to go into an Exceed summon, and in doing so, I will no longer have a 1500 attack monster on the field, so I can no longer negate this monster's effect if he tries to use it. So I'm just going to use this first, have the negate on ready, and then I'm good to go. Alright. Opponent's still choosing not to use the back row yet. He's really holding on to it. Alright, Invocation, summoning out a copy of my Aiwass. Ties the Bind, swinging in. Try and Pulse is going to be popping the field spell, because now I can use this card without getting negated. Doesn't really matter to me too much though. He summons out his boss monster as you do in Try-Mid, but I did get to pop his card. And the other downside of this monster is it's actually only a main phase effect, so I actually just have to end the turn here. So I can't steal his monster just yet. During his turn, he tries to go to battle phase. Obviously, like I said, can only be used during main phase, so go trigger it now. Trying to target his monster. He'll trigger this in response to try to pop my card. So in response, I'm going to trigger my Possessed Partnerships to summon my card and immediately pop his Continuous Trap, negating its effect and yoinking his monster, and he just concedes instantly. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's deck list. Like I said, remember, I wanted this video to be sort of a example for people that didn't know what to do with the deck list, to have an idea of what to do with it, but don't take it as the best way to play the deck list in terms of the ratios or anything like that. Feel free to experiment a bit. I just think the best way to play the new structure deck has got to be with Magistus, because this combo feels really goddamn good for it. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed, remember to leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and hope to see you guys in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob? Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis. Oh.